Good morning, everyone. I am so glad to be in person with you today. A lot has changed over the last year, as we all know. So it's just great to see everybody this morning. And thank you to Secretary Sullivan for the kind words about business services. And so this morning, I'm just going to give you a brief update from Business Services Division. And I think I can just start really by sort of giving you guys some information about what the past years look like for the Secretary of State's office. We were actually really fortunate in that we had invested a lot of time and effort in updating our systems in Business Services Division. So when everything was changing related to COVID and we were moving to remote work, we actually were able to accomplish that pretty much seamlessly. Everyone still in business services is working remotely. We haven't missed any of our turnaround times or our deadlines. So it's been really an incredible process to see staff working so efficiently from home. We do have a couple of processes in business services that do require in-person help. So that includes the authentication process. That is not an online process that's available. And of course, we get mail every day, and we also have customers that come in. So like many of you, we set up a way to make appointments. Even when the government center was closed, we would meet people at the public entrance and run documents in and run documents back. I heard a comment about getting steps in. I know people were really hustling to make sure that everything got done, and that's still continuing. We are by appointment only, but anyone, now that the government center is open, we also serve anyone who walks in. So we have typically like 2 to 3 staff members in the office. One is just primarily opening mail and getting all of that imaged and ready onto our system so that the staff members at home hop on and start filing everything that's waiting in their queue. So everything has really gone incredibly smoothly, and I just have to credit the fact that it was really the investment in upgrading our systems. So we've been in pretty good shape. And then today I'm going to start with just a brief legislative update on a few bills that I thought might interest you, and then we'll talk about notary and remote notary, and then I just have a really quick update on UCC for you guys. So this first bill is House Bill 1255. I'm sure that you have all heard about this one. Well, first I should mention that the effective dates depend by section. They vary by section. So you'll see some are effective upon passage, some later. So it's just important to kind of look through each section to see when that legislation is effective, because it's not consistent throughout the bill. Also, I think something also to mention is the first 51 pages have to do with estate planning and advanced healthcare. And so, you can just cruise right through those first 51 pages. They don't really relate to the work that you do. I think the most important thing to note is it fixed the and back to an or, which I'm sure you are all incredibly excited about. I think at one point we counted 7 or 8 bills that were changing the and back to an or. So it was on everyone's radar. Everyone wanted to make sure that got done. And of course, that work did get completed. And then in addition to that, I think it's also important to mention that it also gave a definition of proof, because I know everyone, when this change occurred, everyone was saying, well, what is a proof? What's the definition of a proof? And there was no definition. It went back to common law, and no one could really say with a certainty what a proof was or how you did it. So they have actually defined proof in this bill. And then there are just various changes after, like I said, after that page 51 that relate to county recorders that you may want to look at. I think probably the most important one to mention is that on July 1st, 2022, there's going to be, there's a requirement that county recorders will receive electronic recording documents. So I wanted to mention that because the Secretary of State's office and a number of county recorders work together to create the Indiana Real Property Recording Standards. So for those of you who have not implemented electronic recording, those standards are out there for you to look at. You know, it should be helpful to you all. And I think that in the transition, actually, that document has been removed from our website, but I'm happy to circulate that to you all and also put it back on our website just for your reference. I also think I took a look at it and just getting prepared for today. I do think that there are probably a couple of updates that probably need to be made to that document as well. So we will look into what that process will be. And then this one is Senate Enrolled Act 204. I don't know that you'll get any questions about this, but I have gotten some questions that were a little concerning, so I wanted to bring it up. This one allows for telephonic witnessing in the creation of an advanced healthcare directive. There are also mentions related to notarizing documents, and I was asked whether you could whether you could do the appearance by telephone based on this legislation, and the answer is no. We worked with them and they tried to make clear that this legislation does not change any of the appearance requirements related to notarizations, whether it's for an advanced healthcare directive or any other notary. So as it's always been, you either have to appear in person with a notary or you have to be on an approved remote technology platform and do a remote notarization. So no change there, but I thought maybe you might get a question or two about it. This one, the Corporate Transparency Act. So this is actually a federal piece of legislation. It was passed January 1, 2021. And then there's a rulemaking process that will be completed by January 1, 2022. So with this piece of legislation, they are requiring corporations and LLCs and other similar entities to file beneficial owner information with FinCEN, which is the Treasury Department at the federal level. They're also, as part of that requirement, they're also saying that corporations, LLCs, and other similar entities that file a document with the Secretary of State or other similar office will be required to file beneficial owner information with FinCEN. So how does that relate to counties? Well, we know that sole proprietorships and general partnerships file assumed names at the county level. I do not know whether their definitions of other entity and other office will go to that level. But I will say that we are actively working on answering questions related to this rule process. Our answers are due on May 5th, and then FinCEN will actually, they will publish the rules. I think they're estimating in July, and then there will be an additional comment section. But as we learn more about the details, we'll absolutely share those with you. If we see anything that we think would impact your offices, we'll let you know as soon as we know. I hate to say, I don't think that it'll happen, then it happens. So I just will say I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. But I really do think that the focus is more on entities that are formed that create that shield and not a focus on assumed names. So, so I do think that is true. So we'll see what happens. And then in the presentation that'll be circulated to you, I do have a link in there that if you want to look at what the bill is about, there's a nice summary. You can also look at the questions that they're asking filing offices. So it could give you a little information about that. Absolutely. Okay. It will be on your website. Okay. Okay, so that's really it on the legislative update. Does anybody have any questions about any part of that? Go ahead.
A question. I'm living in Herzog from Union County, and I just wanted to maybe get some clarification for myself and probably a few other recorders. When you say recorders have to accept electronic records, does that include transferable documents?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Because right now, in order to take a transferable document, it has to coordinate with other county offices. And some counties receive pushback from those other offices, which is the auditor and the assessor, about accepting those electronically. Will this provide clarification and allow them that they have to accept electronic records themselves by 2022? Or is this just strictly for recorders?
I think that probably what we'll need to do is create some type of working group and gather all of the questions as to what that means, and allow people to work together, see whether those the standards for electronic filing need to be updated. But I am definitely not an expert in those processes, so I would hate to even try to answer that question. But I do think that we can create a working group to help everyone understand what that legislation means.
That's a great idea. But I will say, when we drew up the bill, the auditors and assessors wouldn't let us put them in there. And the code does say we have to accept electronic documents proper for recording, and they're not proper for recording until they're stamped. So that's going to be how they're going to get out of it. But we do hear that the land title is going to push them, that it does include them. So this may be a working, changing bill as it goes along.
Thank you. Okay, so for the notary update, I'm sure.
I have a question over here.
Sorry.
I'm Angie from LaPorte County. I was just wondering, has there been a legislation that has gone through with personal property being recorded?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I've just been getting a lot of documents with personal property, and I'm just wondering why they're all coming right now.
Okay. Okay, so the question is, a corporation must file a DBA with the Secretary of State and the county recorder. Is that correct? No, that is not correct. That information will be corrected. So the way that the assumed name statute works is for corporations, LLCs, anything that's formed with the Secretary of State, those assumed names get filed with our office. And then the county level filings are limited to sole proprietorships who are not doing business in their own name, and general partnerships, excuse me. Thank you. Anything? Do we see anything else? Okay. All right. So this next section is just about talking about notary and remote notary. And I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with this information, and I hope that it's helpful for anybody who's new. So what is a notary? They are actually considered a public official. And, you know, their primary purpose is to witness documents that are signed, taking oath, taking affirmations. And really the primary purpose behind that is to deter fraud. In Indiana, notary publics are appointed by the governor and commissioned by the Secretary of State, and their term is for 8 years, which if you look kind of across the U.S., our commission term is substantially longer than most states. And I don't really know the history behind that, but that's where we are in Indiana. In relation to applying for being a notary public, we've made, starting in 2018 was when we started our legislative updates related to the notary law. We modernized the notary law, and then we also then added the remote notary part of it. So in doing that, we had a lot of, well, we had county recorders. Actually, they testified on behalf of those bills. We heard a lot of information about improving the quality and standards related to notary publics and education, in trying to reduce the number of documents that get rejected because the notarization is faulty or incomplete in some way. So that's really been our focus in relation to improving those standards for notary publics. And as part of that, notary publics are now required to have a $25,000 surety bond. They provide our office with a signature sample. They are also required to give a limited criminal history background check from Indiana State Police. And then if they are not a resident of Indiana, but primarily employed here, they're required to provide an employer consent form. One item to note is that our fees related to the notary process are non-refundable, and that as part of the application process, the notary is required to complete an education course and then pass an exam as part of that application. So I also wanted to just talk a little bit about the differences between a notary surety bond and an errors and omission policy. I think a lot of people get these confused. I tend to hear that they think a surety bond is to protect the notary, and it's actually the opposite. The surety bond is to protect the public, to protect the customer of the notary. So, and then the errors and omission policy is really what we think of as like an insurance policy for the notary, and it would cover issues related to errors and omissions. It wouldn't cover negligence or, using your commission to commit fraud or something like that. But and then also the difference between those two is the surety bond is required, but the errors and omission policy would be, while we recommend it, it would be up to the notary whether they want to purchase that type of policy or not. And then this slide just sort of compares the three types of notarizations that are allowed in Indiana. We have traditional, electronic, and remote. So traditional is you all know what that is. It's appearances in person, and there's a wet ink signature, and the documents are hard copy documents. Electronic notarization is the documents are electronic, the signatures are electronic, and the seal is electronic, but the meeting, the appearance, is in person. And then with remote notarization, the documents are electronic, the signature is electronic, and the seal is electronic, and the notary and the client appear before each other on a two-way audiovisual platform that's been approved by the Secretary of State. So as part of the remote notary process, the Secretary of State approves the vendors to provide these services. We kind of make sure that the platform that they've built meets all of the standards that are in the admin rules. And then it's up to the notary to determine which vendor they would like to contract with and use to perform remote notaries. I should say notarizations. So this is a slide that kind of has some new terms on it that you may not have heard, but you may start hearing. We actually just had a webinar on this for secretaries of state, so I thought this might interest you guys. So there's RON, PRON, and RIN. And like we just said, RON is remote online notarization. And that's what we just explained, where everything is electronic. You're on an approved platform, and that's where the notarization takes place. Now, PRON is paper remote online notarization. This also uses an approved platform, and the appearance is set up just like it is on a remote notarization. They have the audit trail, but what happens is the signer has hard copy documents in front of them, and the notary's watching them on the two-way audio visual. The signer signs, they package those documents up, send them to the notary, and then the notary notarizes those documents in a traditional rather than an electronic form. And then there's RIN, so that is remote ink notarization. Now this notarization type has really come about because of COVID. States were trying to make sure that people could get things done, and this was sort of a result of COVID-19. So in this case, the appearance is not on an approved platform. It's on something like Skype or FaceTime or Teams or something like that, but not on an approved platform. And again, they have the meeting, but it uses paper documents that are signed, and then those documents are packaged, sent to the notary, and a traditional seal is put on there. I would like to mention that both PRON and RIN are not allowed in Indiana. Indiana limits the remote notarization to electronic documents. So, and I will say this wasn't really even a concept when we did our legislation. So we'll be watching this item. We'll see whether or not our statute should be amended to include that type of notarization. But for right now in Indiana, PRON and RIN are not allowed. And this slide, I just wanted to include this for you guys. I found this when I was doing some further research. It's just American Land Title has a really great little kind of a one-page summary of what we just talked about, and I just thought it might be helpful to you guys to just have that one pager. So I thought that would be helpful. And then just in relation to notarizations in relation to COVID-19. So what we've seen is that many states have executive orders in place to allow for RON, PRON, and or RIN. And, we, as the state of emergencies go away, the executive orders will be rescinded, and those states that are currently using those types of notarizations will have to go back to traditional notarizations until they pass some type of legislation to allow for these different types of notarizations. So I know that NAS is sort of tracking that. That's National Associations of Secretaries of State. They have information on their website as well. But I don't know that it impacts you on a daily basis, other than I just think people will hear these terms and they might be confused. So I thought it would be helpful to go through them for you. And then this slide just goes into more detail about that remote ink notarization process that we already discussed. Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about what it takes to be a remote notary in Indiana. So first of all, an applicant has to already be a notary public in Indiana. There's a separate application process. There's additional education and an additional exam that has to be passed. And then they also have to contract with one of the approved remote technology vendors. And then they would also then complete the training that the remote technology vendor offers before they start onboarding onto their platform and performing notarizations. Sure.
Okay. The remote notary, and this is a question I get probably daily or weekly.
Okay.
Their seals. That darn commission number not being on their seal. This is a real issue for us because we're being told by the SOS that it has to be there. And we're being told by the notaries, oh, it's coming. I don't have my seal yet. I'll just write it on there. Is that okay?
I think it's fine to write it on there. There's nothing in statute that says that it has to, that it couldn't be part of the stamp. And I know that when we did the legislation, we didn't require notaries to go and get a new stamp or seal. So I think writing it on there is fine.
Even if they're have already renewed, I mean, in your education, you tell them they have to have a seal that does this. And I don't care one way or the other. Yes. I just want us all to know the same answer from you.
I would agree in that case. If they have renewed, they really should have it on their seal. And I think at that point, it really becomes, I mean, it's sort of a give and take whether you want to start rejecting documents for it or not. And we're happy to work with you all on that issue as well.
But it wouldn't invalidate the document or anything like that.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Is the notary required to include the date of the notarial act? Yes. Yes. Okay. So moving on to the continuing education. So as part of our new standards, notaries have to complete continuing education every 2 years. So that would be 3 times over the course of their eight-year commission. All of the courses are administered by the Secretary of State. So they have to complete our course to get that credit. And failure to complete continuing education will ultimately result in the expiration of the commission. And just so you know, the due date related to those continuing education courses, we set up a system where it's due on the last day of the month in the month that they were commissioned. So it's try to help make it easier to remember when that was due. We send emails and we also send a hard copy reminder. Because this is a new initiative, we wanted to make sure that notaries were aware of the requirement. The one thing I will say is that people do not always keep their information current with our office. So, when you email to an address that's no longer in use, or you mail to an address that is no longer their address, that reminder doesn't get to them. When we mail hard copy, though, we actually use a service from Marketing Informatics, and they do a really great job of, if there is information that they know that this address has been updated to a new address, we use the new address. We don't just send it to what's on our system. So we make every effort to let people know. And this is for remote? Oh, I'm surprised. Ki- I mean, we get a daily update on where we are on applications, and we don't have any backlog related to our notary application approvals. Okay, so if you want to contact me after this, I'm happy to look that up for you. And I'm more interested in like what was the technical glitch that it didn't get to you. So I would really like to understand that and make sure that's corrected. Thank you. Okay, so just an update on where we stand with fees. The application is $75, the renewal is $75, continuing education is $50, and to do the remote notary authorization is $100. And we did compare these fees with what other states charge. And I will say, when you compare it to the 8-year commission, we're still kind of on average or lower than most states for those fees. This slide just is a reminder that the fees that a notary public can charge have actually changed. For a traditional notarization, they can actually charge $10 now, and for remote notarization, $25. And the notary can also charge for travel. So just give a quick update on that. Okay. I also just, in this presentation, we've included some examples of the certificates for you all. I don't really think I need to go into the details, but if you want to review those, that information is in there. One thing we always try to remind notaries not to do is just to simply take their seal, stamp it on a piece of paper, and fill it out. I mean, there needs to be some type of certificate or jurat related to that notarization. So that information is there as well. This is just always a good reminder of that notaries cannot notarize documents for themselves or their spouse or any party that they would have a direct benefit in relation to that notarization. And then this slide just goes into some important things for the notary to consider in determining whether to notarize a document. A notary's always has the ability to decline to notarize. So, you know, if they feel that the signer is not aware of what they're signing, if they think the person is incoherent or disoriented, you know, or incapacitated, they can just decline to notarize. However, the notary is also not expected to explain a document to a person and get them up to speed on what they're signing, right? That is up to the person to know what they're doing. So that's definitely not expected of a notary. And then notaries also may want to take some special consideration if notarizing for minor children, someone who's blind or deaf, making sure that they are aware of what they're signing, mentally incapacitated or illiterate, or someone who's seriously ill. So those are just kind of some special considerations that a notary might need to make sure that they're comfortable, and that it's obviously the issue is some type of fraud trying to be perpetuated. So If a notary is not comfortable with the scenario, they can always decline to notarize. And then this slide just gives you, it's just a slide as to where a notary complaint can be submitted to our office. And this is actually on NBiz, and then under notary resources, there's a file a complaint link. The slide just goes into a list of prohibited acts. I won't go into those in detail, but it's in the presentation for you. This slide is related to Notario Publico. This really hasn't been an issue lately, but in other countries, notaries are almost more like an attorney than a notary. So there's just some statute there to protect people from someone advertising Notario Publico, because that means something very specific, and it's more like going to see an attorney than a notary, which in Indiana, notaries are not, able to do all of the work that an attorney can do. So that's what that slide is about. And then this is just to let everyone know that as we look at notary complaints, we do have the ability to revoke a commission. We have some other authority there as well, but we very much take notary complaints seriously. So if there is an issue that you're seeing, please let us know. We would be more than happy to investigate that matter, and we really take seriously trying to make sure that notaries are performing their duties as they should. And like I said earlier, this is just a slide or a really good reminder that notaries are required to file change of information with our office. This is just a good reminder of those things: name, address, email address, phone number, employer information. When that changes, we need to know about that. And then this is just a slide that shows you all where on NBiz you can actually search. Oh, this is actually where you can do a license update. And again, this is about notaries serving as employees, or I'm sorry, employees serving as notaries. This is just a reminder that although you're under someone's employ, the decisions a notary makes related to notarizing a document really has to, they have to understand that they are still responsible for those decisions. And I know this can get pretty tricky for people. We've had different notary complaints where the notary felt like their employer was requiring them to do certain things as part of their job that didn't meet the standards of notarizing documents. So it's just a good reminder that notaries still are held accountable to the standards, even though it might be a notarization in relation to their employment. And then this is just simply just a list of some notary resources for you all. And I'm kind of behind time, so I'm going to hurry up. I'm okay. Okay, so this is the notary search slide, and on NBiz you can go on the main screen. There's a search button, and then you choose Notary Public as your search type, and then you can search the database to find out whether or not someone is in fact a notary public. You can see the status of their commission. This kind of shows, you can see the first notary there is expired, the second one is active, and then in relation to if you want to determine if a notary public is also authorized to perform remote notaries, if you look at the search, a standard notary is going to say notary public under profession and license type. And if they are authorized, it will say notary public under profession and remote notary under license type. So that'll help you determine if someone is authorized to perform remote notarizations. And just this is going to be a quick UCC update. So I received some information that there are some offices that were providing, I think they said up to 6 years of lapsed UCC liens on a search or a copy request. And so this is just a quick reminder that on a search certificate or a copy request, the requesting party can say if they want lapsed liens included. But if they do say they want lapsed liens, that should only be up to 1 year lapsed. And that's just one of the standards that are in statute, and I think also by rule, but just a quick reminder there. And then I also wanted to let you guys know, Paul Hoddenfield, he is with CSC Corporation Service Company. He provides updates for an organization that I'm involved in, and he does just a really great job. He calls this program UCC 101. He's got a 101 and a 201, and he just wondered that whether you all would be interested in him doing a webinar for you guys and just sort of talking about the duties of the filing office. And obviously he would do this free of charge, and we could coordinate, the Secretary of State could coordinate with you all. And I just wondered if there was interest there. He's just a really good guy. And, you know, the more that filing offices get it right, the easier his life is. So, so just wanted to put that out for you guys as a possibility. And then this is just a contact information slide. So that's really it for me today. Are there any additional questions?
Does the notary have to write the person's name and title and who they are notarizing?
Well, I think it would depend on the document. Are we talking about how we're filling out a certificate? I'm going to go back to the certificate slide. Their county of residence?
Should the notarization?
Yes. Yes. County of residence should be on the seal. And as far as whether they would fill in the name, I mean, so it kind of depends on the documents that's before you, because sometimes that certificate is really embedded in the document already. It's the information's already there and the person just signs, versus filling out a certificate or a jurat. So it's kind of dependent on the document, but the person's name who's signing should be, it definitely needs to be filled out.
So the answer is yes. The name of the person they're notarizing has to be there.
Yes.
Okay.
The title.
If they're like VP of the bank or something, do they have to Paul Smith as VP of?
I don't know whether the title would be required or not. I would have to go back and look. I don't know. I don't think that the statute speaks to that specifically, but let me take that as a question and look at statute and see whether it says name and title. I mean, our certificate examples say Susie Signer. So I think in certain, I would also say it probably depends on the circumstance. Is it important? Is the title important in relation to what's being done with the document, like on a closing or something? I would think probably you would want the title there, but I think it is also probably dependent on what that document type is.
new seal doesn't require, or doesn't have instance on it, so they write.
Well, I think this goes back to one of your questions. So I think they're saying the new seal doesn't have the county on it. So someone has gotten a seal without their county on there. I mean, it should be on there. We've never said that someone can't write in information. I think it's better to have a seal with everything on there rather than writing in, but I don't think you're precluded from writing in information.
I'm Beth from Cass County, and being a new recorder, I'd be very interested in the UCC web training.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Absolutely.
interested in that.
Fantastic.
Okay, here's a crazy story. This is COVID. So we had someone come in and they presented a document that was obviously faxed. You could see that was a fax document. The signature of the signer was a copy, but it was a wet signature of notary. And, you know, the person that actually brought it in was the notary herself. So of course I asked her, you know, what is this? Is this remote note? What are we doing? And she said, yeah, I'm a remote notary. I was like, oh, okay, well, doesn't that's, you know, it's not jiving already, but it doesn't state remote notary. And thank you for the knowledge you gave us ahead of time because there were questions. So you went through the process, you've been authorized, you went through this vendor. And she said, well, no. Then she was told, well, I can do this because it's COVID. And I was told that we were allowed because of executive order, things like that. I was like, yeah, I know. And the fact that we could actually look on your website to see if you were authorized. So that was great. My question is, I know that it has to state, because I have yet to see one. I don't know if anybody else has, but it has to state remote notarization next to, at least printed there. Do you also have seals? Is this a special seal for remote notaries?
Yeah, yes, and the standards for the electronic seal are in statute or rule. I can't remember right now, but those standards are there. And I mean, if it would be helpful before we send this presentation, I could include an example of an electronic seal and what those requirements are. I'm happy to do that. I can just do an update and put that in there for you all. Okay. Well, thank you guys. Have a great day and have a great conference. And I will get this updated and I'll send it to you, Ricky. And all right. Thank you guys. Okay.